Hello everyone. People have decided, and you guys chose the Watara Supervision to be my next hardware review. I'm glad that you guys chose this one because, like I said, this is the handheld that I have the most to talk about because I used to collect for it, and it's one of the most fascinating Game Boy ripoffs I've ever seen. And before I begin, though, let me just remind you that this is the conclusion, the part 2 of my 1,000 subscriber special. So please take this video to be my own personal thank you to you for watching my videos, for subscribing, whatever you do. But this is just my own thank you to the fans, and I'm committed to making content that you guys are going to enjoy, stuff that you want to see. But let's get into the hardware itself. This, like I said, is a complete Game Boy ripoff. That's what they were trying to do in a nutshell. That's really what they were trying to do to market this thing. But you probably don't understand how much of a Game Boy ripoff it was because it started out like this. Can you get any more unashamed for a Game Boy ripoff? This thing is amazing. Look, okay, here's the original Game Boy, and here's this. So it is just a little bit bigger, and the screen is also a little bit bigger, as you could see. But the layout is pretty much almost identical, and the way that I like to describe the Supervision, at least this first one, is that it's almost like if you were trying to describe to somebody over the phone what a Game Boy looks like without actually, without them ever seeing a Game Boy. So just imagine, it's like, somebody's saying like, hey, yeah, there's this Game Boy that we want to copy, and it has a green screen, it has buttons that are like kind of diagonal, and only 2 of them right here. It has a start and select. It has controls that let you move in 4 different directions. It has a headphone jack at the bottom, a speaker right here on the right-hand corner, and cartridges go in, at the top right here. And the power button is right here, and it has a little LED when you turn it on. So then somebody over in, I think it was Taiwan, where these were made and designed. I'm not sure, but it says they were made in China. But I think they came from Taiwan. Anyways, though, somebody over there in that Asian country, gets that description. Then they come out with this. And it just checks off all the things that they had said. It really is like somebody never saw a Game Boy, but just heard about it over the phone. And, there are a few things that are a little bit different. Like, for instance, the start and select. I do actually like it that it's right here. That was really smart of them. In fact, if they wanted to, and you know what, there is actually a game that I have where it uses the select button as like a third button. So it's almost like it's 3 buttons now, and I wish the Game Boy had done that because I know that there is one Game Boy game I have which uses the select button. Actually, a few of them, but it doesn't really treat it as like a third button. It really does use it as like a select button to select, your weapon or whatever. But this one, it does actually use it as a third button in at least one game that I have. And otherwise, though, it's a complete ripoff. It even has some of the problems that the Game Boy had. Like, for instance, the battery compartment door. This little tab part can really wear out, just like the Game Boy. Then that way it becomes really loose, and sometimes it just falls off, and then you don't have a battery compartment anymore. And but look at this. Look at this right here. It even says the model number GB2000. So you see, these Game Boy ripoff creators, they really don't use any common sense. I mean, can't you guys hide your influence at all? For instance, even of course the GB Boy, which I interpret to be Game Boy Boy, which was the other actual Game Boy clone, not a knockoff, but an actual clone that would play Game Boy cartridges. And so it just seems like they don't hide it at all. And I've heard some contradictory information about this handheld right here, this version, because it really is the same thing as this, but just in a different form factor. But I've heard, let me put this to the side, I've heard that these were actually, I don't know if this is true, I don't think it is. I've heard, I think on the Wikipedia page, that these two were sold at the same time. So in other words, this was just a different form factor of the same thing sold at the same time. I don't think that is true. I think this one came earlier. But I've heard on the Wikipedia, I think, that this was originally sold in Argentina. So in other words, this was like a region-specific one. But again, it says that they were sold side by side, and I don't think that is true. But this one right here, it is very hard to come by. Out of the Watara Supervisions, it's actually pretty easy to find these. But these ones are much, much rarer. They're very, very hard to come by. And I think I got this one from a seller on eBay in the Netherlands. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was somewhere in Europe. But I do remember that I had to import it because it was just impossible to find in the United States. I don't think this one was ever sold in the US. And I'll actually get into it later, some proof that this one was never sold here. But these ones are extremely hard to come by. In fact, I have only seen a boxed version for sale. I haven't tracked the sales of these things in quite a while. But when I was tracking the sales, when I was collecting for this, I only saw a boxed unit go up for sale once. And it was at a price which I just wasn't comfortable paying. And I was actually smart to go ahead and get this one when I found it, because it's actually in pretty good condition. And these things, they were beat to hell. I mean, especially these early ones for some reason, it just seems like kids would just tear them apart. Maybe they just had, you know, a little bit worse build quality. As a matter of fact, you know what, let me show you this. Alright, here's the DC port. Come on, focus please, thank you. Look, it's all crooked. So the build quality here and there, it is pretty well put together. I mean, nothing feels like it's too cheap, but the build quality just isn't exactly there like a Game Boy. A Game Boy, especially after the original one, after the original Cinder Block, they had build quality that was down to the smallest micron. You could drop those things off a table and it would, you know, just be fine. Whereas this, I think if you dropped it off anything, it would just shatter. And but still, the buttons, they're pretty nice. I don't like this Chinese D-pad. I mean, this is one of the first handhelds I've ever seen that has it like this. And it's just worse because they're so spaced out that you could actually almost fit your thumb in between there. So it's just bad. I don't like it ever when they use this type of thing where it's 4 separate buttons. But again, this was back at the time where Nintendo did have the patent to this kind of D-pad. So I don't think they were able to make their own D-pad. At least they made their own later, as you can see right here. But I think that they kind of had to do this to try to fit within the legal bounds of what a ripoff could be. But obviously, that's the only concession they made. And anyways, what I was saying though was that these are very, very hard to find. These ones are by far the rarest ones. And but when I was able to find one like this in very good condition, I went ahead and got it, and that was a smart move because, like I said, they're hard to come by. I didn't want to pay the price that they were asking for that boxed one, and so I knew that I wanted to get this one in my collection, and I'm glad that I settled for this one right here because I think when I got it was like $40, which at that time that was pretty expensive to pay for one of these outside of its box. But I was still happy to pay for it, and I'm happy now because these are just really hard to come by. But let's go ahead and turn this on and then put a game in it. And one of the things that you guys will have to understand is that when you have batteries in this thing, it's actually not going to work. You see, it's not going to turn on unless it has a game in there. For some reason, the game will go ahead and complete the circuit. Maybe that was something that they put in there so that way you don't have a game out of there that drains its battery or something. But let me... Yeah, we'll use this game right here. This is Dream World. And anyways, once you, like I said, it's not going to turn on right here. And once you put the cartridge in, then it will turn on. And that actually sucks because when I was preparing for this episode, when I was testing my units and just making sure that everything works, it wasn't turning on. And I was like, oh my god, no, I haven't touched these things in years, and then now they're all dead. And I was just really scared because I was using fresh batteries. And but it turns out that no, if you guys see one of these for sale and it doesn't turn on and it doesn't have a cartridge in it, don't assume that it's going to be dead, because it might just be that it's just not working without the cartridge. And you know what, like you see right here, they're very finicky because of that feature. But like you saw, it did actually turn on, but there you go. There we go. Supervision. And I don't know if you guys could tell right there, but that just showed off one of the worst problems with this thing. And you know what, I'm struggling to get this thing at the correct angle so that way we could play it. Ugh, the music is terrible. Alright guys, so so what's the problem here? The screen is absolutely terrible. It has some of the worst ghosting I've ever seen on any handheld. Even the line of dead pixels there. But it is just so terrible. The ghosting makes this almost unplayable. And you'll actually notice that some of these games, it seems like they were underclocked. It seems like they're not running as fast as they could. but they kind of had to do that because I don't think the screen can really cope with a lot of movement going on, because then it'll just be a blur that just goes across the whole thing. But another difference between this and the Game Boy is that the Game Boy had vertical lines that were kind of like scan lines, I guess you could call it. I don't know if that's the correct term. But the Watara Supervision, on the other hand, has horizontal lines. So I don't know if you guys noticed it when I pointed out, but there was a line of dead pixels that showed up. And that's a problem with the Game Boy as well, but the Game Boy has them vertically because, I mean, that's the way it's oriented. But anyway, so that's just a little difference right there. But the cool thing about the Supervision, one of the good things I like about it, is that it seems that whenever it does have that problem, it's not permanent. For the Game Boy, if you have a line of dead pixels, forget it. It's going to be dead until you open it up and correct it. Ah, boss battle with a kangaroo. Ah, come on. No, leave me alone. You know what? And this is the game that I told you has the... I'm going to die. Ah, damn it. This is a game that I told you it has the third button, because the select button, it uses that little bar on the bottom that says ESP. I don't know what it does, though, because I was choosing it right there, I was clicking it, and it didn't do anything during the boss battle. I have no clue what ESP does in this thing, but... it started us at the beginning. To be honest, I haven't put a lot of effort into this game. I haven't really tested it out that much, but I will go ahead and explain that just a little bit later after I turn this off. But yeah, so this thing, the games were just absolutely terrible. This is actually known as one of the better games for it. It's one of the only platformers that ever came out for it. And apparently has some generic story about the princess that has to save another princess or something like that. It's basically a Mario ripoff, but you have infinite firepower, whatever that is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And you fight a kangaroo, but I can't get past the kangaroo because he just traps me in the corner. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The buttons are a little bit reversed. Usually the A button, which I'm really glad that they use B and A like a Game Boy. Usually when it's a clone system, they'll go ahead and put A, B just so that way it's not like Nintendo. But it is reversed in the sense that I have to push B in order to jump. But yeah, and the music is absolutely grating. Ugh, hate this. Oh no, there's the kangaroo. Ah, leave me alone! Stop! Okay, alright, he left us alone now. Ah, no, no, Alright, game over again. Alright, let's turn this off. But let me just tell you, the reason why I haven't really focused on the games or anything, the reason why I don't really focus on that part at all, is because the Watara Supervision, that is one of the strangest devices I own, because it was in a really strange part of my life. I knew about the collector market that was booming around video games. There's always been really a collector market in video games if you, I guess maybe not when they were brand new, way back in the Atari era. But ever since, there's always been, at least as long as I've been alive, there's always been those fringe people who collect for Atari or, you know, Odyssey or Fairchild Channel F, those people. Anyways, I always knew about that, and it was clear that handhelds were going to be entering the collector market as well. And so this was a really strange part of my life when I decided that I want to collect, I want to enter the collector market, and I want it to be for the Watara Supervision. Because at the time, it was easy to get them very cheaply because nobody really knew about it. I don't even think there was a Wikipedia page for it at that time. And I remember the first time I saw one, it was one of these. It was at a collector's place. He was, I think I was buying a Virtual Boy from a guy off Craigslist. And he had a whole bunch of other video game stuff, and we were just talking, you know, just shooting the shit. And then he was like, yeah, I've been collecting. I even got one of these, a Watara something or another. I don't know what it is. I don't even have a game for it. I can't. It's broken, I can't turn it on. And that was the first time I saw it, and I was just fascinated, so I went home and looked it up, and that began my whole collecting thing for it. So it's really strange because that is completely out of character for me. Usually when I get something, it's because I enjoy the games on it. If I collect anything video game-wise, it always has a function to it. It's very rare that I'll ever get something just because I'm speculating on the market, and I'm going to be collecting and trading and that sort of thing. In fact, I usually never even trade. So it was really strange for me to get into that because I went in with the mindset that this is going to be a new experience for me. I'm going to try to be a collector, dealer, trader type of person. And so it was just really strange. And this was the first one that I got. This one, let me put all this to the side. I don't think we're going to see this anymore now. Anyways, this was the first one that I ever bought, and I think I mentioned in the last one that I got it for about $12 shipped. And again, this was really, really early in the collector market for this kind of thing. And so it was a miracle that I was able to get it for that price, but then again, nobody was ever looking for it. I think it was the only one on eBay when I got it. And so I paid $12 for it. I thought I was getting ripped off because the guy paid $4 for it. And but this was how I entered the market right here. And I think at the peak of when I was collecting, I think I had maybe 5 boxed units, and I only collected boxed units. I did not want to get one that was outside of its box, except for, of course, this one, which I only got because there was nothing else out there. It was just getting really, really hard to find those at all. So when I saw one in good condition for a good price, I had to go ahead and put my money down, because at this point when I got this, I had come to the realization that, at least as I thought, that there were no boxed units out there. I would never get a boxed unit, so I had to sell for that. But when it came to these, I never bought one that was outside of its box. I always bought it with its box, with as many of its contents as I could possibly get. Of course, you know, with these, they're always missing the contents, and in fact, none of the 3 that I have the same contents in it. But I always got them with their box, and that was one of the best things that I did. That's one of the coolest things about the collecting aspect that I had, because I would get boxed units, but of course they were never, they were all in various states of disrepair, or like I said, they didn't have all the contents in them. So the way that I would work it is that I would get my boxed units, and when I would get one that was like in poor condition, you know, one that had, you know, a torn up box or something like that, and then I would get one that was in better condition, then I would sell or trade off the one that was in worse condition. So it was kind of like I was always getting new ones, and the old ones I would just rotate them out and just trade them for different stuff. So that was kind of like how I did the whole dealer trader type thing. So it was just really strange for me, and you know what, I have a lot of regrets about trading that stuff, because for instance, let me bring out this one now. This one, I used to have 2 of these boxed. The first one that I got that was boxed, it was like all ripped up, and it was in fairly good condition, but it wasn't as good as this. This one, it's in great condition. But also some of the stuff on it, I think it didn't have those little tidbits on there on the front cover of it. And plus, I love it how this is like the early box that ever came out. And I love that it's all like Trapper Keeper style. It's got this robot and, you know, this little graph background space thing going on. And I like that, but like I said, I went ahead and had one that was in worse condition, and I went ahead and traded that out. And it's such a bad story when it happened. Okay, so like when I was deep into the collecting market, I had that one that was in worse condition that was just like this. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to trade this in, and this time I'm going to go to a game store. And I'm going to get something nice for it, because I mean, of course, this thing is rare. You're never going to see another one of these. I'm going to go into the game store, and I am going to trade this in for something really cool. Something really rare, something that I can't get anywhere else. So I go to this little retro game shop that this guy has, and I, you know, just nonchalantly put this on the counter, and I'm like, yeah, man, you know, I'm thinking about trading this in. What can I get for it? And of course, in my mind, I've already mapped this out, like, as far as how this thing is going to go. I'm like, oh man, this guy, he's just going to be drooling all over this. He's going to be like, oh dude, I'll give you anything for this. What do you want? You know, just name your price. Instead, though, when I put this on the counter, this guy was like, what the hell is that? Like, he was completely indifferent and completely unimpressed by it. He was like, what is that? Like, I have no clue what it's even worth. And to be honest, that was a good choice on his part to be a little bit skeptical, because again, these are so rare at that time that he didn't know if this was one in 1,000 or 1 in a million. He didn't know what the production on this was, what the value was. But he didn't want to trade anything of value for it. And then so I was trying to haggle with him. I couldn't really get him to, you know, get me anything good. So that was just like, I made the correct decision. I was like, you know what, never mind, I'm just going to go ahead and keep it. So I went to a store, and then I picked out some, I think it was some NES games off the shelf, and then I went in, paid for them so I could leave the store, And that was a good decision as well, because that kind of proved to him that I have money, that I'm here to spend money, that I'm here to buy your stuff. I'm just not here, as a tire kicker, just trying to get the good deal for me. So anyways, I went to buy my stuff, and I was heading out the door, and then he was like, wait a second, let me look at that again. And then so he looks at this again, and he's like struggling with himself. He's like, you know what, like, I do want this, but I could tell that like he doesn't know what it's worth. And so then I was like, you know what, let's just do a straight trade. Let's just trade a handheld for a handheld, whatever you have. And I tried to trade him a Game Boy Micro, and he said no, he's not going to do that. And then I went ahead and saw the Neo Geo Pocket Color that he has, and that's how I got my Neo Geo Pocket Color. I went ahead and did a straight trade for it, and that was one of the worst decisions I've ever made, because I learned an important lesson. And again, this whole dealer trader thing that I was into, the whole collector market for the Watara Supervision, it was a great learning experience, because I learned at that point that things do not appreciate at the same rate. Because the Neo Geo Pocket Color, at the time, that was a pretty good trade, because the crappy boxed one that I had, the Watara Supervision, it was worth about $30 on eBay. I mean, it wasn't worth that much at the time. And the Neo Geo Pocket Color, just loose out of its box, it was worth about $30 too. So it was a pretty even trade, and I didn't have any regrets at that time. I was like, whatever, I got a good deal. But nowadays, the loose out of box Neo Geo Pocket Color is again worth about $30. It hasn't appreciated at all. And the Watara Supervision, anyone in any box, is now worth some money. So I made a terrible, terrible decision. That was, I wish I could rewind the hands of time. But that's just something that you have to learn in the collector market. But I like how these boxes are so different. Because this one, it looks like something out of a J. Peterman catalog. It's very 90s, and then this one's very 80s. So it's really funny the way that this turned out. But let's go ahead and open up this one. This one is the most complete one that I have. And I haven't really swapped in any instruction booklets or anything that came in it. I pretty much just kept it the way that it was. And the way that I got it. And whenever I was trading and everything, anytime I would get, a better box or anything, I kind of wanted to trade this one in, because I was like, it's just a casino game, whatever. But I could never bring myself to trade it. I just couldn't, because it was the one that got me into the scene. So I guess maybe I had a little sentimental value to it. Excuse me. But, no, I wasn't crying. I had a burp that came up. But, anyways, it's one of the most complete ones I have. And so maybe it's best that I didn't trade in, and plus because I've kind of noticed that the casino version is a little bit harder to get than the other ones. Like, for instance, the robot one, that one's actually pretty common. But I'm really glad that I kept this one, because it just had a little bit more sentimental value to me, and it's just the most complete. It's the most valuable too. But let's see what's in here. Alright, this is the little manual that came with it. And this one, it just talks about, what kind of games are in here and the features that it has. Let me pull this out right here, because you see, as you can see, one of the biggest selling points with this is that the screen tilts up. So that's this weird, useless little feature that they put on here. And so yeah, the screen, it can tilt. There you go. Ta-da! Magic trick. Yay. Yeah, so it's not impressive at all, but it's just something that they put on there, and whatever, who knows, maybe somebody buy it just for that. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Yeah, it's just a lot of games right here, and a lot of these are just not good at all. Crisp Ball, that is by far the most common one. That's basically their version of Tetris, which is really just their version of Breakout, or, what was that one? Arkanoid. It's kind of like that. But, yeah, Honeybee, that's a copy of Twin Bee, but I think it might just be a shooter. I don't think it really does anything. Jaguar Bomber, I have that one. And, but really none of these are really all that great. There is one, let me see which one it was. I think it was Hero Kid. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. But there's one of them that is known as like a pretty good Watara Supervision game. But as you can see, all these games are just, they're not even that great. they're they're just rip-offs of other things. So they're usually just like a little space shooter or something like that. It pretty much is like a Tiger Electronics game that's just made in the Game Boy style. So you see, it never had a killer app. It never had anything that like made you want to actually, get this handheld. And I think that was really the death knell for it in its coffin, because nobody is going to be spending money on anything if it just can't deliver the games for it. And now that I'm talking about that, let me talk a little bit about the marketing after we're done with this little booklet. I have seen that little bag every now and then on eBay, so I do know that they made that bag. They made some AC adapters, a car adapter, and the TV link. Now the TV link, that was going to be my holy grail for the collection. When I was collecting for this, my goal at the end was to get a TV link. And apparently, like, the screen on the actual handheld itself, it only displays like 4 different shades of gray, like an original Game Boy. And this one, it will go ahead and show it in color, but I think it just remaps those 4 different shades into different shades of like red and blue. So it says it's in color, but it's not really. But I always wanted to get one of these because that was just going to be the pinnacle of my collection, to have the little TV dock right there. And the thing is huge. Look at this. And then so the little unit sits in there, but the damn thing, I mean, it's huge. And focus, please. I think that's as much as it's going to focus. There we go. Anyways, the damn thing looks like a toilet. Look at that. And then the unit sits in there. Then I guess you have to have like, an AC adapter going into the unit itself and into the TV link. So it just looks crazy. I never owned one of these though. I could never find one. There was one guy who was always selling one on eBay for like $600, but I never got it because it was just way out of my price range. I was not willing to pay that for it. And but yeah, so I always wanted one of these, but I could not secure one. I was not able to find one, but it would have been the pinnacle of my collection, the centerpiece of my collection. Instead, though, I got a different thing that became the centerpiece of my collection, which you'll see in just a little bit. But yeah, so that was the little TV link right there. There was a way to connect it to the TV, but it's incredibly rare. I've never seen one except for that one on eBay. But if I did, I would be honored to buy one, but they're just going for way too much money these days. Alright, now sorry if this hardware review is just all over the place, but I just have so much to talk about this. And let me go ahead and talk about the marketing for this thing. This is one of the last things I ever bought for the Watara Supervision. I think I got it last year sometime. And I just got it because I was just browsing the Watara Supervision market, as I do every now and then, just to see what prices are like and that sort of thing, without actually looking to buy anything. But I bought this because it was very cheap, and it's a little bag. I guess I'm hoping that this was like given away at a trade show or something. I don't think this would have ever appeared on store shelves. But I went ahead and bought this because it was only like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 bucks. And yeah, I just bought it because I was not into collecting. I wasn't looking to get another unit, but I was just like, where the price is like, and then I found this. But this will show you how they marketed the stupid thing. This is a bag that says Supervision, the affordable portable video game with a giant screen. And that just speaks to all different kinds of moron, because why would you market this as an affordable video game system if you're competing with the Game Boy? The Game Boy pretty much made a name for itself for being so affordable and so easy for, people to get their hands on. I remember when we finally got one in our family, and it's not this one, this isn't the original one I had, but when I finally got one, I think the price of it was $50 on store shelves, and that was like, the Watara Supervision, from what I could tell, it came out in 1992. And I think Game Boys were like $50 very shortly thereafter. So maybe that actually, killed off the Supervision for good. But I just don't get how you would say that that's affordable. That's like competing with, with a Hyundai and saying that, oh, we're the affordable car maker, don't go with that Hyundai or whatever. But it just makes no sense. And yeah, then with a giant screen, they always love to talk about how their screen is so much bigger. And yeah, it is bigger, but as you saw with that gameplay, it is far worse. I would take the Game Boy screen, even the original Cinderblock Game Boy, I would take that any day over the Supervision. This thing is terrible. It has, it's just wrong. But yeah, so just a little marketing fluff, and that's really what they were trying to do. Here we go. This is, oh wow, this is actually like actual size. Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, this actually is like real size of the stupid thing. I keep on saying stupid thing because really it is a ridiculous concept for them to have tried to compete with the Game Boy. Because, I mean, look at these stupid games that they had. Look at this. Pac-Boy and Mouse, Honeybee, P-52C Battle, Chimera. That one actually looks pretty cool. It's some sort of mechanical duck. Grand Prix, Snake. I wonder if Phil Collins looked like that one. Crystball. And here's Crystball, the Arkanoid clone. But, you see, there's no way that they could compete with the Game Boy. And, like I said, I'm sure that some marketing whiz people that were, working at Watara or Supervision, whichever company it was, I'm sure that they actually, all met up in a room and they were like, hey, I got this great idea. We're going to compete with the Game Boy. We're going to pull the rug out from under them because we're going to have a bigger screen. And we're only going to be $30 cheaper, but that's going to make the whole difference and all this other stuff. And it's a ridiculous notion because, I mean, the Game Boy, now looking back, I mean, hindsight is 20/20, but I'm sure that at the time, maybe they really did seem like a threat. But, I mean, Game Boy, there was so much to it more than, just the size of its screen and its price. There really was a social component to it. People actually liked it because Tetris was a killer app. I mean, you got a Game Boy because just to play Tetris on the go was incredible back then. But Game Boy, there was just so much of the social element to it. And in fact, I listened to this podcast called TinyCast, and I'm sure they won't mind me putting out a little plug for them right here. But it actually is a pretty cool podcast where they just talk about like handheld devices and that sort of thing. And they've never talked about the Supervision, but there is one guy on the podcast who you can tell that he's from some sort of Latin American country. And he went ahead and said that, I think it was for Christmas or for his birthday, he got some sort of a handheld that was a Game Boy knockoff. He asked for a Game Boy for Christmas or his birthday, but his grandparents got him. He describes it as something that was something else, some sort of a Game Boy ripoff that was not a Game Boy. And I'm sure it was this. I am positive he was talking about the Watara Supervision.
So my grandfather, it's just, what do you want? I want a Game Boy. Because, that was what kids wanted. It was probably in second or third year of elementary school. Anyway, he got me a wrong thing.
What did he get you?
So I wish I remember what it was. It was another console that had a similar screen to the Game Boy, so it was like a green scale screen.
Oh.
And it had cartridges too. But I don't remember what it was called. I'm trying to find it now. Anyway, it got me one of these weird things. And it had a snake on it, I think.
Yeah. I know what it's called. If I've just would remember, I could tell you.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is. Anyway, my grandfather gave it to me, and then, I was like, oh, thanks, I was thankful, and even if I was sad that it was not a Game Boy. And then I hung out with all my friends in the, my neighborhood friends in the park, and everyone had a Game Boy, and I was really sad. So I went and told my grandfather, "Is it possible to return this and get a Game Boy?" And then I got a Game Boy, so I was safe.
That's cute, though.
Yeah, it was kind of cute.
You know what, though, friend? You didn't settle for it, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad because my grandfather got me this gift,
yeah.
and I was happy even though it wasn't Game Boy, and then everyone was playing, Tetris, and they were playing together with a link cable, and then I was sitting in the corner with this thing with Snake. and I was like, oh, that's cool. And kids were like, what is this? And I would show it, and then after 5 seconds they would be like, okay, and then go back to play their Game Boy.
Can you imagine having a system with a screen as terrible as the Game Boy, but the games aren't as good as the Game Boy?
Yeah.
That sounds miserable.
But his story really goes to show, the social component to the Game Boy. Because it wasn't just, the hardware side of it. It was that the Game Boy had incredible games for it. it doesn't just come down to affordability and a giant screen. There is actually other stuff in there, especially when kids are wanting something and they're not the ones paying for it. And a giant screen, when it's just a few millimeters bigger, that really isn't a selling point. So, yeah, the marketing for this thing was terrible. I think the backside is the same thing. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. But yeah, so that was just really cool. I don't know where this came from. I wish somebody could tell me where it did come from, but yeah, this is pretty much just their marketing in a nutshell. That statement right there is the marketing campaign for the Supervision in a nutshell, and it completely failed. It just fell flat on its face. But yeah, this thing is just a mess. Try not to think about it too much, because you're only going to lead yourself down the wrong road. Also, there's this communication port, which I guess was so that you could link two devices. I think it was maybe used to link up that TV mod thingamajig that looked like a toilet. But yeah, so it had that communication port. And another crazy thing about this, let me see, I think it was on the casino game. Let's just plug that in real quick. Alright, so the casino game... okay, it says Supervision. But for one of the... I guess it wasn't for the casino game. Maybe it was for the Crystal game. It actually says Travel Mate. It doesn't say Supervision on there. Let me see... Let me bring out the other games I have. I only have 2 games right now. I'm sure I had more at the time, way back when I was collecting for this thing. But you see, here's Jaguar Bomber. And let's turn this on. Okay, this one says Supervision 2. But anyways, what I was going to say was that, like on the Game Boy, where it has that little scroll and it says Nintendo, that's actually in the unit. That's like part of the code that's in the unit, so that way it could tell you that. But with this, it seems that it's actually on the cartridge whenever it says Supervision or whatever, because I've had the same unit say either Supervision or Travel Mate, because it was actually sold like as different things in different markets. Like I think it was even sold in one market with a different design, and it was called the Mighty Duck or something. Or Mega Duck, something like that. And, oh god, the sound is so terrible. And look at that. Look at how bad the screen is. You could barely tell which enemies are coming up. That's the... You see, I just died because you can't tell which enemies are coming up. Everything is just a blur. But, yeah, so it was actually sold in different markets as, like, the Mega Duck, and I think there was one that was completely redesigned. Like, it had like a Game Boy Advance design where the screen sits in the middle and then the controls are on both sides. Kind of like a Game Gear, actually. But anyways, that one, I think it was only sold like in the UK or something. And I never got one of those because for a while I was thinking about getting into the collecting scene as far as like the little fringe versions of WonderSwan. But then I decided, I was like, okay, look, I need to draw the line somewhere. If I start collecting every little scrap of WonderSwan stuff, I'm really going to be OCD. So, and look, there I died again, because everything is so slow. You see, they can't have the fighter move any faster, because if it does, then you're not going to be able to even see yourself, your own character. But anyways, yeah, I decided that I wasn't going to be collecting like the little fringe, one-off, weird, one market versions of WonderSwan. Of Watara Supervision, because that would just be completely over the top. I would be going completely mad if I did that. But there are different versions out there, and that's actually one of the strangest things about collecting for this thing, because there are so many different versions that were made, like even with different combinations of buttons, and like button colors, which you're going to see in just a sec. But anyways, there was a different combination of buttons for like all kinds of stuff. And I think there was even one that had like a red ring around the screen. But yeah, so there were different versions, and I don't think anyone knows like all the different versions that went out there, because there's very little documentation for this thing. It's a little fringe console, so there's not really the information out there. Nobody's like made a book about Watara Supervision collecting, not that I know of. If there was, I would read it from cover to cover. But there really isn't a lot of documentation as far as what was happening, and you'll see the problem with that in just a sec. Alright. Here is the Space Cadet. Oh man, that's so bad that David Bowie died. Starman. Missed the guy already. Anyways, so this is one that is not in as good condition as that casino one. It doesn't have a little styrofoam covering it, it's kind of a little grungy and whatever, but the unit itself is in good condition. It's in perfect condition. It actually doesn't have that problem at all with the little lines that are that go across the screen. And so this one, as far as unit-wise, this one is in probably the best condition that I have. But, and you know what, it even still has batteries that came with it, which I should probably get out of there because it's only a matter of time before they explode and just rip this thing apart. But anyways, this is how you could actually see how the box was structured. It would have the batteries in here, headphones in here, and you know what, I didn't show you guys the headphones in that one. But it's good that I didn't because they're all nasty. The foam has all come apart, so I don't know, they're all ripped apart. But yeah, they're just standard little headphones, really cheap ones. I'm sure that they would sound like shit. But yeah, so the headphones would go in here, then here's where the little game would be. And so this one is Crystball. Crystball is like their version of Arkanoid, like I said before. And you know what? This box, you could see that it still has the price tag on there. You could barely make it out. Focus, please. Focus. Focus with all your might. Please. I don't know if you can make it out. There you go. Alright, it was $49.95. So yeah, it was $50 or so when this thing actually came out. And look, giant tilt screen. Many fun and exciting games to choose from. So you see, they were honest on one thing, but, you know, lying on something else. And I like how the robot, he's like working the screen. Hey, check this out, kids. Oh, that's terrible. But yeah, so this is what the box looks like, made in China. And let's take a look at Crystball. Let's put this in here. Turn it on. There you go, Travel Mate. So you see, it was sold as different things in different markets. And again, this Crystball, it actually came in this box. I don't know, maybe somebody, you know, it doesn't have the rest of the stuff in here. Maybe somebody, oh shoot, the game already started. Maybe somebody, like, you know, put the wrong, no, wait, this is just the demo. Maybe somebody put the wrong game in here, but I'm thinking that there was no standardized production, like they would just use whichever version of Crystball there was available. So it's very likely that some Supervisions were shipped with Travel Mate games in them. And as you can see, there's already a problem with this version of Arkanoid, and that is that the ball only moves at 45-degree angles. So it's a very cheap version. It's just terrible. It's actually really easy. Look at that blur on the screen. Oh my god. Yeah, so this thing is terrible. Yeah, it's really easy to get through it because, I mean, it's just so simple, and it moves so slowly. It has to move slowly, because look at that blur. That is not anything wrong with, like, the video effects that you're, or, like, the video capture right here that you're seeing. It is that blurry. It is that bad. And look at the ball. It's like a comet with that ghosting on it. Oh my god, this thing. Yeah, so, again, I only got into this, like, for the collector's aspect of it. I did not go into it because the games were any good. The games were terrible. And so, yeah, this is not one where you want to get into it to try and enjoy yourself. You're really only going to enjoy yourself by setting goals for yourself to find crazy stuff. Look at that. Continue, level continue. So not even like level complete, level continue. Yeah, whatever. So, you see, it does come in like different Travel Mate and, you know, Mighty Duck, whatever the hell that thing was sold as. But let's put this to the side because now we're going to get to the main event. Now you're going to see the centerpiece of my whole Watara Supervision collection. And that is, ta-da! For most of you out there, you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, what the hell? I mean, that means nothing to me. What is this? This, for all, maybe 3 Watara Supervision collectors in the country, for those people, they're probably collectively shitting their pants right now, because this one was never, ever, ever sold. You see, and as a matter of fact, there's a little hint right here. Important. For positive directional responses, must apply pressure on the 4 dots on the directional control red button. And yeah, they misspelled button. And also they don't have a space between comma and must. But it has this weird little tip right here on it. And like I said, it was never sold as this. This box, I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere else. Because this one was never sold like this. This is actually a test unit, a demo unit, that was sent out to some magazine. I think it was like, I think it was like Electronics and PC Monthly or something like that. And I've always, when I got this on eBay, and it was on an old account that I've since been locked out of and I can't find anymore. But the guy who went in and sold it, he said it was from that magazine. And I tried to find that magazine, but I can't find it. If anybody knows which magazine this came from, or which one this was sent to in its past life, make sure to tell me, because, I mean, I would love to get a copy of that magazine, but the magazine is just impossible to find now. At least that specific issue. And anyway, so this was a demo unit that was sent to a magazine, and it has this color scheme that was never used on any other ones. It has this red D-pad, which it doesn't use a cross. You see the Supervision, the final production one, it has like this cross right here. And by the way, the D-pad is terrible. It has almost no feel to it. I'm glad that it actually doesn't have like games on there that require quick timing and that sort of thing. But anyway, so this one, it had this weird little red one with little balls right there for different directions. And the thing is, though, that did appear in some other markets on different Supervision, TravelMate, whatever it was sold as, but it never appeared in this exact color scheme. It always had like a different shade of blue for the buttons, and like I said, like a red ring around the screen. It never sold as this. However, I have seen one box which was, I think it was sold as the Supervision GB 2002. And so there is a box that is called that does not look like this, but it does say GB 2002. And that one, it does have the Watara Supervision on the cover looking like this. But I've seen 3 different photos of people showing them off in their collection. And in the actual box, it is the same Supervision as this, with just the black D-pad that has the cross right here. So I'm taking that to mean that those ones that were sold with the red D-pad on there, they were probably just reusing a box design that they had left, that they intended to sell it like this, but they ultimately decided not to, maybe because the D-pad was very unresponsive, so they needed to redesign it. So on the box itself, it said that they were selling it as that, but once you open the box, it looked just like this. But if you open up my box, on the other hand, come on. If you open up my box, you'll see that they actually did make some which had this exact color scheme and this D-pad. I don't know how many they made, and I think that they were only sent out as test units because to this day, and I mean the whole time when I was a Watara Supervision collector, I'm glad that I picked this up because I have never, ever seen another one exactly like this. Not even with this box, so even the box itself is rare. But yeah, so if anybody else has one, let me know. But even now, checking up on the Watara Supervision scene every now and then, I have never, ever seen one that is made exactly like this. I think this was just one of just a few that was made to send out to magazines to review. Maybe it's the only one of its kind, who the hell knows. But again, the facts of this whole thing, how the production went, why did some of them have this little red thing on the box when they really had the black cross, who knows? I mean, there's just so much information. Well, no, that's the problem. There's very little information, but everything seems to contradict each other, so it's not exactly possible to confirm stuff like that. But anyways, this one is in perfect condition, because I mean, I guess it was only used for testing, and then the guy, just put it away in a closet and sold it on eBay one day. But yeah, so this one, it's very rare. I've never seen any other one like it. And to be honest, the D-pad actually feels better than the other one, but I guess they were having some, response problems with it. But where is my other one that I had? Because I wanted to show something right here. Check this out. This is also a unique version of Crystball, because as you can see, it is slightly different. So this one actually has Watara on it, but this one it doesn't, and it's a different shade of red, whereas this one is purple. And also the actual quality of it, it almost looks like this one's a bootleg. It almost looks like it. But who the hell would ever bootleg for this thing? So this had to be like the final production version. But you see this one, it's like lower resolution than this one right here. So just little differences, but little differences in the Watara Supervision collector community. That is what differentiates the units, because some of them are different in small ways, and that affects whether they're unique or not. And, but yeah, so I'm really glad that I have this one, though, because, like I said, I've never seen any other one like it. And, that really is all that I have to say about it. This is a really long episode, I'm sorry, but hopefully some of you really liked it. But anyways, as far as Watara Supervision collecting goes today, I would recommend don't get into the market, because the time when you could get Watara Supervision very cheaply back when I was collecting for it, that time is long gone. You can't get a good deal on these anymore. So fascinatingly though, they have actually made quite a few emulators for the Watara Supervision. So if you have any interest in it whatsoever, I would say go with that instead. And even if you want to collect for this thing and add it to your collection, unless you want it just as a curio to be like, oh hey, look at this failed Game Boy ripoff. Unless you want it as that, if you actually want to collect it so that way you could enjoy the games on it, no, I would say go with the emulator first, because know what you're getting into. The games are terrible. Absolutely terrible. Probably the worst library I've ever seen on any console. So check that out first, because you want to know what you're getting into. And as far as myself being in this Watara Supervision collecting market, I don't regret my time with it. I actually did enjoy it. But again, I am filled with regret with letting those units go, because I traded off those, and if I had kept them today, I could sell them for a lot more. And that is the regret that I always live with, and that is why I only experimented with the collector trader market with the Watara Supervision, and I've never gone back. I only get stuff now so I can enjoy it, and I don't trade it off, because I'm not built to be a collector trader. I would suck at running my own retro game shop, because I would want to keep everything. So it was a great learning experience for me to figure out that I'm just not built to be a collector. I really need to just focus on stuff that I enjoy. And that really is the best enjoyment that I could get out of gaming, because once I start trading collecting, I'm going to be filled with regret. So that's how I got into the Watara Supervision market, and yeah, I don't recommend getting into it unless you know what you're getting into, which is just a shitty Game Boy knockoff. But anyways, again, thank you guys for bringing me to 1,000 subscribers, but the fun does not stop there, because let me move all this. Gotta have boxes all over the place now. Alright, because it doesn't end with that. I have right here in this box one of the most requested game consoles that anybody, or handhelds I should say, I have one of the most requested handhelds that you guys have been asking for ever since I first started this channel. So even though this is not going to be officially part of the 1,000 subscriber special, it ends right here. This one, I do kind of see this as a service to you guys, because you guys have been asking for this, and I finally got around to buying it. So it's not going to be the next episode that I make. I need to catch up on a lot of stuff, including Indie Box, which I am so terribly behind. But in the next hardware review, you guys are going to see a handheld that you guys have been asking for a long time. But really, that's all that I have for this episode. Sorry it's so long, but I just wanted to thank you guys for bringing me to 1,000 subscribers. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you later.